Welcome back to my channel, everyone. Alright, without further ado, let us dive straight into the recap of TSUKIMICHI Moonlit Fantasy Part 23. This story begins when Makoto and Shiki go to meet the new students to give them a lesson. Since the festival the other day, more and more students have become interested in becoming Makoto's disciples. After greeting the trainees, Makoto and Shiki are seen finishing a rather complex magic circle. The moment the circle activates, the students, including Abelia, suddenly feel a strange sensation that makes their bodies feel light, as if they are floating, and their heads feel slightly dizzy. It turns out that Makoto and Shiki have created an isolated illusion space. Without giving a long explanation, they immediately inform everyone that the day's lesson will begin from this point. Inside the illusion, Abelia's surroundings change completely. She finds herself thrown alone into an unfamiliar grassland, with no sign of Makoto, Shiki, or her companions. Abelia quickly realizes that this is a new form of training created by Makoto and Shiki, confinement training inside an illusion space. However, before she has time to think any further, black mud monsters emerge from the ground and immediately attack her. Even so, Abelia does not panic. She tries to stay calm and assumes that this is only a harmless visual simulation. To confirm her assumption, she deliberately allows one attack to hit her body. However, her assumption is instantly shattered when a sharp pain strikes her skin. Fresh blood flows out, proving that the illusion created by Makoto and Shiki can cause real physical harm. Abelia hastily heals herself with magic, while suppressing her fear. The monster becomes increasingly aggressive, its body growing larger and its movements becoming far sharper than before. Although she is being cornered, Abelia forces herself to keep going. She remembers her desire to become an employee of the Kuzunoha Company and to work by Shiki's side, and that determination becomes the fuel that drives her to continue fighting. Amid the relentless attacks, Abelia scans her surroundings, trying to find a flaw in the structure of the illusion. Sure enough, there is one small point where the scenery looks slightly distorted. Without hesitation, she channels mana into her arrow and fires directly at that defective point. She continues to bombard the area with attacks until the illusion finally collapses, and Abelia successfully escapes from the artificial space created by Makoto and Shiki. A sense of relief immediately appears on her face. She feels that she has completed the test properly. When she becomes fully aware of the real world again, Abelia finds that Jin and Dina have already woken up earlier. She recalls Shiki's words about her having less talent compared to the other students, and although she acknowledges that fact, she does not take it to heart. Instead, it motivates her to work even harder to catch up to her friends, or even surpass them someday. She also notices the surprised expressions on Makoto's and Shiki's faces, leading her to suspect that they did not expect her to escape the illusion. Sometime before Abelia awakens, Makoto and Shiki have a discussion. According to them, Jin and Dina are quite fortunate because they managed to find an exit path that already existed within the illusion, a structural gap that should not have been easily discovered. The illusion created by Makoto and Shiki is not yet perfect and still has several weak points, unlike Tomoe's illusion, which is far more complete. Because of that, Jin's and Dana's success is considered to be purely the result of luck. However, not long after that, they see Abelia emerge from the illusion, and not through a lucky shortcut. The girl completes the entire scenario properly, solving the puzzle exactly as it is meant to be solved. Makoto and Shiki cannot hide their admiration for Abelia's drastic growth. Shiki even has to acknowledge the girl's ability, although Makoto is busy teasing Shiki by pointing out how obvious Abelia's feelings for him are, which of course, Shiki immediately ignores. While waiting for the other students to regain consciousness, Makoto picks up a small bow that Shiki has prepared. The bow is nothing more than a toy, complete with rubber-tipped arrows. However, Makoto looks eager to enter the training field and hunt down the 3 students who have already woken up. Even though the weapon is only a toy, when it is in Makoto's hands, it means that the students still have to be prepared to receive merciless attacks aimed at their vital points. After the torture session disguised as training finally comes to an end, Jin and his exhausted companions drag their bodies toward the library to undergo a routine evaluation. With that, the lesson for the day officially comes to a close. After the evaluation, the senior students who have long been trained by Makoto begin to talk with the juniors. At a glance, the conversation sounds casual, but hidden within it are sharp and pointed pieces of advice that strike deeply and leave the juniors speechless. In short, the gathering eventually ends. While watching the juniors walk away unsteadily, yet full of enthusiasm, Jin can only force a bitter smile. In his heart, he wonders how many of them will still dare to come back the next day. On the following day, Makoto goes to meet Zara and several other acquaintances to inform them that he will be traveling to the country of Lorel. However, somehow, that simple information leaks out and turns into a wild rumor claiming that Makoto will be going far away and cancelling all of his classes. As a result, the Kuzunoha shop is immediately flooded by academy students who are crying, wailing, and even begging in front of the door. Makoto, who has just arrived, can only stand frozen as he stares at the absurd scene. There is even one man who clings to his leg while sobbing, terrified that his teacher is truly going to leave. After things calm down somewhat, Makoto patiently explains that even though he will be going to Lurel, the classes will continue as usual because he has a rapid transportation method. That explanation finally eases the crowd's panic, and the shop gradually becomes quiet again. After successfully calming the frightened new students, Makoto heads to the backyard of the shop to check on the senior students who are working part-time at Kuzunoha. There he meets Jin, who is organizing goods. Jin tries to ask about the rumor regarding the class cancellation, but before he can finish his sentence, a loud crashing sound rings out. It turns out that Abelia and the other senior students appear and explain that they have already tried to clear up the rumor, but everything has already descended into chaos. Before the situation can truly stabilize, Eris suddenly arrives and informs Makoto that there is a guest who wants to meet him. That guest is Izzumo, a quiet student who rarely shows any sign of panic. Yet on that day, he looks genuinely anxious. Inside Makoto's private room, Izzumo sits with a stiff posture. His face, which is usually calm, is now filled with unease. He asks which area in Lorel Makoto will be traveling to. Makoto casually answers that his destination is Kanawi City, after which he will continue his journey toward the Yaso-Katsui Labyrinth. Upon hearing that, Izzumo is immediately shaken. His tone rises as he asks whether Makoto is also planning to negotiate with the Ikusabe and Osakabe families. Makoto confirms this, and then adds that he will also be visiting the mercenary group known as Rose Garden. From there, the conversation expands further. Izzumo emphasizes that reaching the 20th floor of the Yaso-Katsui Labyrinth is not something that can be accomplished in a short amount of time. However, Makoto responds casually, saying that he is confident he can finish it in just 2 days. Izzumo's reaction immediately explodes. He considers that impossible and says that Makoto does not understand the dangers that exist there. In the middle of his panic, Izzumo finally decides to reveal everything that he knows. As repayment for all of Makoto's guidance so far, he wants to provide as much information as possible about Kanawi, Yaso-Katsui, the Ikusabe and Osakabe families, the Wise Ones, and even the legends surrounding the elite mercenary forces. Makoto listens to everything with an expressionless face. For him, stories about family conflicts and sibling rivalries like these are already far too common and not particularly interesting. He simply nods while occasionally giving brief acknowledgements, which causes Izzumo to speak faster and at greater length. However, Makoto understands that Izzumo is carrying a heavy burden related to his family issues in Lorel. After Izzumo finishes speaking, Makoto offers him a cup of tea to calm him down. In a calm voice, he says that he could actually help if he wanted to, but he feels that it would be inappropriate to interfere in another family's internal affairs. He also emphasizes that his assistance to Cyrits has no connection whatsoever to the internal family conflicts in Lorel. Makoto adds that if Izzumo feels overwhelmed, there is nothing wrong with sharing his worries with his friends. Sometimes, talking with people who are trusted can lighten the heart. And if everything truly becomes something that he cannot handle on his own, Izzumo can always ask Makoto for help. Izzumo still sits restlessly, as he admits that he is not confident he would be able to pay Makoto if he truly asks for assistance. However, Makoto responds calmly. He says that Izzumo does not need to worry about that. As long as there is an intention to pay someday, he will not set any deadline at all. In other words, Izzumo is free to pay him whenever he is able. After seeing Izzumo begin to calm down, Makoto adds that if he wishes, Izzumo is welcome to accompany him on his journey to Lorel later. Makoto's main purpose is simply to meet the mercenaries, so he does not mind helping to resolve Izzumo's family problems at the same time, as long as Izzumo himself wants that help. Izzumo lowers his head and expresses his sincere gratitude. At the same time, he firmly states that his family problems are something he must resolve on his own. He does not know when he will be ready, but at the very least, he is confident that he will be able to handle it someday. At that moment, Izzumo looks at Makoto with a mixture of respect and admiration. He says that even though Makoto appears very young physically, his life experience is clearly far beyond Izzumo's own, almost like someone who has lived for a very long time. Makoto can only remain silent upon hearing this, feeling that his student is exaggerating his image too much. After that long confession, Izzumo finally excuses himself and leaves the room. Once Izzumo's figure completely disappears from sight, Makoto calls out to Shiki, who has been hiding near the door the entire time. The two of them then begin discussing the various pieces of information that have just been revealed. Shiki explains that the labyrinth in Lorel is not only regarded as a challenge, but is also worshipped like a goddess or a spirit. Makoto is surprised. He does not expect that something as dangerous as a labyrinth would be worshipped. The conversation then shifts to clan politics in Lorel. Shiki begins to lay out the complex structure involving Izzumo's family. He recounts the history of the Ikusabe clan, which was expelled hundreds of years ago, but later rose again as a shadow military force working for the ruling family. Shiki also reveals that the current patron of Izzumo's family is the Kahara clan. In an instant, Makoto understands something extremely important. The cunning empress he has known all this time, Seiritz Kahara, turns out to be the patron of his own student's family. However, their attention soon shifts to the strangest part of Shiki's report, the Guardians of the Labyrinth. According to the information that is circulating, the labyrinth is guarded by a powerful fairy named Mariko and a shadow dragon known as Futz. This is where the problem lies. Based on the data from Root, the superior dragon that rules the Lurel region is supposed to be named Doma, the Shadow-clad. So why does all of Lorel refer to the name Futz? That name sounds unfamiliar and even feels more dangerous than Doma. And yet, according to Root, Doma is still in the form of an egg at his location. If that is the case, then who exactly is the being they call Futz? Has Doma already awakened without Root's knowledge? Or is there another entity that has taken control of that territory? A bad premonition begins to creep into Makoto's mind. Before venturing too deeply into the Lorel labyrinth, he makes one decision. He must meet Root first. He needs a clear and definitive answer regarding who the true shadow ruler of Lorel is at present. Meanwhile, on the other side of the city, Izzumo is now sitting alone in a park. He regrets having shown his most vulnerable side in front of Makoto earlier. Deep in his heart, he realizes that he actually wants Makoto to help resolve all of his problems. That is why he told him everything. However, after thinking it over more carefully, he feels that his actions were pathetic and unbecoming. His engagement problem with the Osakabe princess, the inheritance dispute of the Ikusabe clan, the long-standing burden of his family, all of it weighs heavily on his mind. Still, little by little, he regains his composure. With a small, confident grin, he remembers that Jin is treating the new student candidates at the Gotetsu Tavern. Without giving it much thought, Izzumo rises from his seat and heads toward the tavern. So, that is the recap of Part 23 from TSUKIMICHI Moonlit Fantasy.